Good morning, you're listening to Butler's Cheltenham Morning Line with me, Dave Evans, and Tarek Quiros, Head of VIP Operations. So it's day 2 and the bookies will be looking to recover from yesterday's bloodbath with so many favourites winning. So Tarek, can you tell me, how did Bet Butler fare within that? Because just to make people aware and remind people that Bet Butler is not a traditional bookmaker, it's more of a broker.
Exactly, Dave. Yes, we are a broker, and we do hedge our bets. So whereas you will go on to any normal bookmaker and have your bet on a particular horse, and they will give you a certain price as to what they're offering, you will come to us and we will find you the best price across the whole range of bookmakers that you can possibly imagine, and then we will tell you what the best price is, and then we will hedge those bets with that bookmaker. So whereas we saw an awful lot of money yesterday for my 10 or yours, whilst that would have been a bad result for all the bookmakers, that wouldn't have made any difference to Bet Butler because we would have hedged most of that business away, so we wouldn't have really seen any issues. And whilst you then went to have Sim and Sig win, which is a very short price favourite, and you had other things that were very well backed throughout the day, including Hurricane Flight to win the Champion Hurdle. Whilst these were bad results for bookies, these were suitably decent results for Bet Butler because we've already hedged that business away across our wide range of accounts.
Interesting. So what do you think for today then, Tarek? I mean, yesterday, was it partly the conditions, the frozen ground in parts? Was that a factor? And do you think we're likely to see anything similar today with favourites coming in?
Yeah, I mean, a part of the reason yesterday with the conditions, I think there's a little bit of the unknown. So many of the jockeys were probably unsure as to how the ground was going to fare, and we had some concerns over whether front runners were going to be able to last out, and it worked out in the first race. Champagne Fever pretty much led all the way, but Overturn and a couple of others, really, Rock on Ruby, tried to lead from the front and faded towards the end. I definitely would be with horses in the pack when you've got these bitterly cold crosswinds coming across, because it can't help front runners that are exposed to this.
Any kind of horses that might be a highlight for that?
Well, one of my highlights of the day is, as I mentioned a few days ago, is Buddy Bolero. We saw money for it last week, and you'll see money for it again today, and you will continue to see money for it, I believe, right up until the race. It's a big David Pod fancy. It's coming out of a yard that really likes this horse, and the chances are it'll be covered up, not exposed to the conditions, and with any luck it will come with a decent late run to take the honours.
And just to remind people what race that's running in.
That's the first race of the day, so hopefully you'll get off to a decent start in the 1:30. It's 4 miles, so sit back and enjoy that one for a while. And then you've got great races throughout the day. Obviously, the big race is the Sprinter Sacra race in the 320, but that's not one for betting on really. Sprinter Sacra is going to be around 4-1 on. You're not going to get rich, but you just got to watch that. That's a Frank or Black Caviar kind of horse. You don't have a bet in a race. You just sit and watch and enjoy.
Yeah, nice. And anything else that's caught your eye this morning, Tarek?
There's been an awful lot of money for Pont Alexandra in the 205. It's going to go off very short now. Again, it's the Ruby factor really. He had 3 winners yesterday, so you're going to find anything he rides today is going to be really heavily backed. So whilst that's well fancied, it's probably going to go off shorter than what it's probably worth at the end of the race. You have to take that into account, that just because he's on it and he's in very good form doesn't mean it's going to win, but it will mean that a lot of people will back it. So often you need to sort of steer clear of gambles that are purely because one particular trainer is in reasonable form, one particular jockey especially is in reasonable form.
Potentially one to avoid today, or to look for value elsewhere in that race.
Yeah, absolutely. My quote would be probably worth opposing at the price would be the sort of way of putting that out.
On price grounds alone.
Yeah.
So Bet Butler are running a 10% odds boost on Unionisti in the 240 RSA Chase, and that means if the horse wins, and say you backed it at 3-1, you'll actually be given odds equivalent of about 3.3-1, or something that would match that. So what do you think to that, Tarek, that horse, and do you think there's anything else that might catch your eye in that race?
Well, Unionisti is almost by default looking like a good thing. Boston Bob, which is the second favourite, and Goulan, which is the fourth favourite, there are big question marks over both those horses, and I wouldn't want to be with either of those at all, which kind of by default sort of makes Unionisti a much stronger horse than previously it might have been. So I wouldn't scare people away from Unisty, but it wouldn't have been my fancy at the start. And if I was looking for something myself, Ublon de Obo has been well backed, and that would be definitely the call on each way value.
Great stuff. Thanks very much, Tarek, and we look forward to speaking to you tomorrow morning as well.
Thanks very much, Dave.
Cheers.